Hello everyone, my name is Bruno VATH ZARPELLON. I am the Director of Innovation and Sustainability of the Brazilian-German Chamber of Commerce, and I'm going to tell you what is the Chamber of Commerce all about, what we have been doing in innovation, and in summary I'll discuss with you if your company is ready for the future. And for us to get into that, and from then explain a little bit of what we have been doing in the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce, I think it's good for us to align some concepts. So I'm going to give you some information that might seem obvious for some of you, but something that is really important when we talk about innovation and transformation is to understand the basics. And what is the basics here? Well, the basics is that the world is changing ever faster. Today we have a number of trends that have been influencing the society, the market, and the world as a whole. There are so many trends that we can even group them into some fronts. So what are the groups of trends that have been impacting our lives? These are trends related to business models, trends related to technologies, behaviors, and also unexpected trends. I'm not going to go in depth here, but the main thing that I want to convey with this slide is that the world is changing, and there are several variables that we have to consider for us to understand a little more what is the direction we should go. But let me make this clear, the world is changing and these changes are going to impact us. And this is a little bit of what I am showing here with this slide. You know, these changes or these trends that are going to impact these fronts, depending on how companies deal with them, they can be seen as a threat or they can be seen as an opportunity. Like I said, everything depends on how the company is going to face up to the transformations that the world is going through. I'm not going to go in depth here either, but when we talk about threats in this new normal, something that it even sounds a little cliche at this point, but there are some startups and new competitors, there are some diversities of similar products, and there is the risk of launching products that are replacements that we never conceived, that are launched all of a sudden, and they turn some products completely obsolete, maybe entire portfolios from companies. And there are a number of other threats that can be analyzed and they can be seen when we talk about those transformations. And in the same way, if you look at it from a different point of view, you can see all of these trends that I mentioned in the previous slide as opportunities. So these are opportunities for the companies to stand out. These are opportunities for companies to be able to meet a demand in a market that was thus far unknown, and not only to meet the demand of a market, but this new way of consumers to consume their products. And we know that consumers used to always look at price, right? Those that know a little bit more about marketing know about the 4 Ps, right? But these days, what customers look at is the experience, or what value that product can add to me or to my life. So our way of consuming has changed, and if companies look at that through innovation, they can really see this as an opportunity and not as a threat for their day-to-day. And I'm actually giving you a spoiler a little bit. Everything that we talk about in terms of trends that are impacting the business and threats and opportunities can be summarized into a single word, which is innovation. As a matter of fact, folks, innovation today is not only present in products. I always like to highlight this slide and this alignment around innovation, because a lot of times when we talk about innovation, especially to a broader audience, we always have in our minds an innovative product like an iPhone or a Tesla, Airbnb, in other words, the final product. But when we talk about innovation, this is a much broader concept. Innovation is really present all across a business. When you look at the Oslo Manual, which is a major reference dealing with innovation, what it does is it breaks into many fronts. So we do have innovation in product, but we also have innovation in people, that is represented by the Oslo Manual, as you know, innovation in processes, in production. And before we get into innovation, one important thing for us to understand is what is the capacity that our business has to innovate. I always say that before we define if we are going to do an acceleration program, if we have to develop a new process or digitalize a product, first of all, we have to look inwards and assess if the company is ready to innovate. That's why the title of the presentation is your company ready for the future? And being ready for the future is not only to have digital products and processes, it's about having a team that is ready to deal with innovation. So that goes from the managerial side, from the investment side, and the culture side. So you really have to assess your business to see if you can focus your efforts on innovation. I always like to highlight this slide because it really shows what is the context that we have today. And it shows where it's possible for us to fit this innovation topic so we don't get the false impression that innovation is only limited to products. This is actually the end of the journey, so to speak, or the icing on the cake. But there is a whole iceberg below the surface that makes this innovation journey viable. And it also brings innovation to other departments of the company, not only what we see on the shelf at the end of the day. And with that backdrop, having this alignment between innovation and corporate innovation at that, I would like to bring you the topic of Germany. After all, when we talk about a reference in innovation, here's a country that is definitely at the forefront. Made in Germany has a very strong connotation in the market as a quote, as a sentence. So just to give you some more information about Germany and to connect that to the topic of this presentation, which is around ecosystems and co-creation. I think ecosystem has some very interesting assets. When it comes to the ecosystems, Germany has a very, very strong innovation ecosystem, and this innovation ecosystem has many assets to it, and we can include those assets with some data and some specific information. So when it comes to investment, for example, Germany today invests 2.9% of its GDP on innovation, and by 2025 they want to increase it to 3.5%. This is a country that invests the most on innovation. When it comes to education, Germany invests a lot on dual education, which is sort of a mix from practice and theory. So students are working in companies and universities as a tandem, and they come out of this course with a practical view of how to apply that theme. When it comes to intellectual property, Germany is the 5th ranking country when it comes to patents, and they also have the largest patent department in the European Union. It's important to mention that we have very strong, innovative countries in the European Union, but due to the characteristics of Germany, this country is really the main one when it comes to innovation. And one thing that makes us very envy here in Brazil is that the average time for the patent analysis is 2 years, and in Brazil we have a backlog of over 10 years. So I think one point that is really interesting of this slide that I want to highlight to you is that when we talk about the innovation ecosystem, we think about the institutions involved and how the stakeholders are set up and who are the main characters in this ecosystem. And in Germany, one of the main powerhouses that we have are the research institutes in Germany. We have some global references, and some of those institutes work with applied as well as basic research, and they work very heavily with companies. So in those institutes, some of the institutes have projects all over the world, and they have billion-dollar investments in working with companies, and at the same time they have a tradition of collaborative work with the private sector. So Germany today is very much acknowledged for this work. They work in tandem between companies and the research institutions. One other point that I think really represents the power of the German innovative ecosystem is the term Industry 4.0. This is very broad today, but for those that don't know, 4.0 industry was a theme that was coined in Germany in 2011, and it's not only an expression, it's more of a strategy. It's a state strategy for Germany to be able to occupy a leadership position when it comes to industry technologies. So everything that Germany does today when it comes to innovation and when it comes to creating innovative ecosystems is very pragmatic. It's very strategic. And one interesting point that I think is going to be clear in the next slide as well is the tradition and actually the tendency that Germany has to always look for clusters of innovation. So when Germany has a theme that is strategic for the country, what the country does is they create clusters. So let me get to the next slide. This map makes it really clear. Germany always tries to understand what are the main competences in each region, what are the main competences and traditions of different cities, and based on that knowledge, Germany creates clusters. So just to give you an example, in Hamburg, for example, you have a cluster on logistics due to the ports, right? In Frankfurt, for example, Frankfurt is a city that is very strong when it comes to the finance sector. So you have a fintech cluster, and Germany tries to organize itself in a cluster format. And we have some other information here that is related to the German startup ecosystem. And here's why I'm talking about innovation in Germany, because if you consider the demand that we have for innovation in our companies and also the reference position of Germany in terms of innovation, we decided to create 9 years ago we decided to create the area of innovation and technology in the chamber Brazil, Germany. So we have an objective which is very clear, which is to promote bilateral partnerships between Brazil and Germany, and also to develop the local development of companies that are associated. And we have a strong focus on innovation. We have our Innovation Council that is spearheaded by the CEO of Lufthansa here in Latin America, and we try to always be in line with the main demands of the market. So I always say that this committee, this innovation committee, brings to us the main demands from companies, from their companies, and also from the value chain that these companies are inserted. And from there, the chamber can develop some very assertive initiatives to solve major problems and major demands. So moving on, what are the main fronts of the Brazilian-German Chamber of Commerce? We have a very strong work when it comes to education and culture. So we have entrepreneurship programs, we have continuous education platforms, we have certifications, we have a very strong project on best practices. We create work groups with innovation heads to discuss general topics. Our main activity today is very much focused on open innovation. I'm going to get into a little bit of that. I think it's really related to the co-creation ecosystems as well, and we have management, projects, and trends. And then, just to give you further examples, in terms of results, what we have been doing in practice, these are some information, some general figures in our area, but I think the main thing that I would like to stress is that because of the work that we have been developing to promote the local innovation ecosystem and this connection between Germany and Brazil, especially when it comes to open innovation. In the last 2 years, we were acknowledged as one of the top 10 startups ecosystem in Brazil by the ranking that Germany has. And the chamber today, since it's not a sectorial institution, in our institution we have different sectors involved, and for having Germany as a reference, innovation is a part of our DNA. At the end of the day, what we do is to create bridges and to promote collaborative projects between our associated companies. And this slide right here shows a bit of what has been done and the activities that we've been conducting. To get into the practical side, what we do and how we try to promote this ecosystem. The main program that we have is the Startups Connected program. It's not an acceleration of startups per se, but it's more of an acceleration of projects between startups and major companies. So this program has been going on for 5 years. It's always based on challenges that are posed by the anchor companies. And throughout this program, we have launched over 40 challenges and we have had over 50 startups that were accelerated. And Klabin itself, in partnership with Voigt, had a challenge that was related to sustainable and smart packages. So both companies launched the challenge within this program, and throughout the last 3 months, actually was concluded early this year, we selected a startup and we accelerated that startup to be able to solve this problem, or at least to meet this opportunity of having smart and sustainable packages. One other program that we have, which is also in line with the local innovation and startup environment, is the AHK Innovation Day. This is comprised by another matchmaking effort with startups. So in practice, here's how it works. We choose a topic. For example, the next meeting will be optimization and digitalization of administrative processes. We actually have a title, which is it doesn't matter the place if you're digital. And in the morning time, we are going to bring companies that provide or use technology with focus on that utilization. And in the afternoon, we're going to have startups that focus on digitalizing admin processes so that the companies that are interested can talk about it and understand how to make partnerships and make business. Well, that's really what I wanted to show you overall. That's what I wanted to share and explain a little bit why the Brazil-Germany Chamber is working with innovation. Like I said, we try to meet the demands, and innovation is definitely an ever-present demand, and Germany is a reference on innovation, and it couldn't be otherwise. You know, our chamber is definitely going to focus on this process. And another point is the importance of developing collaborative projects, because the chamber doesn't represent a sectorial organization, right? We have a very strong focus on innovation, and we are able to really get a head start when it comes to collaborative projects. In the pandemic, in the last year, we conducted 5 projects to fight COVID in Brazil. We got dozens of companies involved, and we did private and public partnerships with Germany. So along with the German government and local companies, we mobilized over 50 million reals to fight COVID. So that's the job that we have here. We want to connect dots. We want to make this platform available, which is a neutral platform of discussion and co-creation. And along with our many departments in different areas, we want to make projects possible, ones that are really assertive, to face up to society's issues and the demands that our companies face. So at your service, I hope I was able to show you a little bit of what we are doing in the chamber and what Germany has to offer as an innovation ecosystem. Thank you very much.